Hey guys, it's Byron here and welcome to Byron's Reviews. Now a few days ago a YouTuber by the name of John Hancock uploaded a video called My Most Favourite Failed Console, and that video will be linked in the description because it's what inspired me to make this one. Now on that video, John Hancock talked about the 2013 micro console, the OUYA, and now in this video I'm going to be telling you my thoughts on it. So I hope you enjoy. First of all, let's talk about some of the history of this obscure little system. OUYA started as a highly successful Kickstarter campaign, raising over $8.5 million. It promised an Android-based console which would give indie developers a viable way to get their games on the TV with. And with an online store where games could be downloaded from, and every OUYA console being a development kit, anybody could put their game on the OUYA. And on top of this, every game had to be free to try, so you didn't really risk getting a game that you didn't like. However, this success just didn't last for the OUYA, as once it was released, it received an overall bad reputation amongst gamers and was a commercial failure, and as such, 2 years later in 2015 it was discontinued and the company was sold. Having said all this, like John Hancock, I personally love the OUYA, and it has secured a very special place in my heart, and I'm now going to tell you why. First of all, I like the OUYA for very similar reasons that I like Nintendo consoles, and that is that it had a very distinct and unique character from the other systems around. The OUYA's marketplace was full of quirky and interesting titles, bursting with style and charm, and they just offered a different experience from what the big three console manufacturers had to offer. However, unlike the big three, the OUYA didn't really have any games from big name developers, but honestly, I don't think it really needed them. Why? Because systems like the PS4 and Xbox One are, in my opinion, pretty much almost identical to each other, with many of the same games, and as a result, the OUYA just was different, and these bigger games probably wouldn't have even felt at home on the system. After all, the OUYA always was intended to be a console for indie games, not necessarily bigger games. But while I have to admit that the OUYA probably was never a replacement for these bigger consoles, I do think that it was always a great companion piece to them, offering a different experience. Another reason why I love the OUYA is because it encouraged you to play games that you probably wouldn't otherwise play. One of my favourite things to do with the system was to go onto the store and pick a random game I'd never heard of before that just happened to catch my eye. I'd download it, and sure, a lot of the time it could end up being pretty bad, but on the other hand, many times it ended up being awesome, and I would have never discovered that game any other way. And with the OUYA's policy of every game having to be free to try, this method of selecting games had never been easier, and you risked nothing in downloading these titles because, well, if you didn't like it, you hadn't paid any money and you could just go and try another game. However, they did take away this free-to-try policy down the road, I think in an attempt to try and get big name developers, much to my disappointment. And the reason why I love how the OUYA encourages you to try new games so much is because I think most of us, not just with games but with films and stuff, pretty much just consume what we're fed and what's advertised in mainstream media, and as a result, many great smaller indie titles can often get pushed into the background and they can never find an audience. The OUYA was trying to break that, and as a result, some of the great games that you wouldn't have discovered, you can easily find. So they're the main reasons why I love the OUYA, and to illustrate my passion for the system even further, I'm going to show you some of my favourite games for it. The first game I want to talk about is Sci-Fighters, and Sci-Fighters is just one example of the many great multiplayer games on the OUYA, because multiplayer is something that this console absolutely nailed. And it's a very unique multiplayer game, because in Sci-Fighters you are in a sort of arena with the people you're playing against, and there's a big monster in the middle. And with the vast majority of the items you can pick up and use, you can't directly hurt your opponents. But what you're trying to do is you're trying to use these items to get the monster in the middle of the arena to kill all the other opponents. And it's a really fun game that is just great to play with friends. Next, I'm going to be talking about several games that are made by the same person, the OUYA user Hancock, or his games go under the A Game a Week label. And wow, there have been so many great A Game a Week games, too many to mention, but to mention some of my favourites: Spiky Tower, Plat Dude in the Endless Forest, JNK Bombers, Blast Tracks, Disc Blaster, Sheep Goes Right, My Little Rescue Helicopter, Blockman, Space Popcorn. And a lot of these games are based off classic retro or arcade games, and many of them have really clever, interesting twists on these classic titles. And it kind of highlights something, that a lot of the games on the OUYA were really styled off retro games, and they do have a retro vibe to them. And as you may be able to guess by like this hoodie and my cap, I love retro games, and I think many of the games on the OUYA are great for retro gamers as a result. But A Game a Week games were some of my favourites on the system. Now I want to talk about my personal favourite game on the console, The Amazing Frog. And if the OUYA was going to have a mascot, I think The Amazing Frog would be that, because it kind of is the embodiment of why I love the system so much. It's simple, it's fun, it's goofy, but it's just an enjoyable experience as a result. In The Amazing Frog, you walk around the town of Swindon, and you can basically do whatever you want in this big open world environment, and you can also go to the moon, to the sewers, and it's hilarious. This game is just so silly and quite glitchy too, but in a weird way the glitches are kind of what make the game fun, because it was just kind of fun making these glitches happen. And like, for instance, me and my friends, when we played it, spent so much time into trying to exit the map, because there were cannons and trampolines everywhere in the map, and you could actually get outside the map and just fall into this abyss of nothing away from the town of Swindon, and it was just so much fun. And now, if you've even done a little bit of research into the OUYA or watched a couple of videos on it, you would have almost certainly heard of this next game, Towerfall. And oh my days, Towerfall is probably one of the most competitive multiplayer games I've ever played. And if you want to lose some friends, this is the perfect game. But no, seriously, it is just fun to play with friends. And it's just so strategic. You basically are trying to kill your enemies by shooting at arrows at them, because I guess it's an archery combat fighting game. That's the best way to describe it. And with a great art style and blood pulsing music, it's just crazy and an insane amount of fun. And another title like this is Bomb Squad. And Bomb Squad is once again a great multiplayer game, and it has such a fun style to it. You're basically just trying to like throw many different types of bombs at your enemies to try and kill them. And all of these games just evoke so many vivid memories in my head, and I can safely say that Bomb Squad is just an example of this, because some of the games on the OUYA are literally some of the most memorable games I've played of all time, and are some of the most fun experiences I've ever had with gaming. Because while I think other gaming platforms like really try and focus on realistic graphics or trying to make something really big and epic, the OUYA was just simple, but it was fun, and it was probably the easiest system just to sit back and play with friends. And with Bomb Squad, I can't say how many laughs I've had with it. It's just great. Now, I have a list of all the games I'd ideally like to talk about here, but I'm gonna be here forever if I go through all of them, so I'm not gonna talk about the rest in great depth, but I'm just gonna go down the list. Skyriders, Nyancat, Fist of Awesome, Alex the Alien, Nightmare Tower, Monocle Man, Neon Shadow, Pork Chop Hero, Clark, Maltida Castilla, Stalagflight. There are so many great games on the OUYA, and when I was collecting the gameplay for this video, it was so hard to pry myself away from these games because they're just so fun and addictive, and they're so good. I love the OUYA. But to conclude this video, I remember first getting my OUYA and opening the box, and the first thing I saw when I opened the box was this. And so the revolution begins. In all seriousness, the OUYA wasn't a revolution, but it really tried to be. It tried to innovate and change gaming and be something completely new. And while it may not have revolutionized gaming like it wanted to, I think it deserves a hell of a lot of respect and credit for trying. Because without innovation, things get boring and stale. And things like the OUYA are just trying to mix it up. And some of the things it stood for, I just respect so much. And I know that OUYA wasn't perfect, and it did have many issues. The controller lag was an issue, it had pretty bad Wi-Fi connectivity, but none of these things stopped it from being just such a great console to me that I had lots of fun with. I love my OUYA, and I think I always will. So I hope that you guys enjoyed this video. If you have any thoughts on the OUYA, whether you agree or disagree with me, please feel free to share them in the comments below, as well as any constructive criticism about how I could improve my video making. But until next time, I will see you later. Bye. OUYA.